Hey everyone, it's me, Gojirex, and today we're doing our Save the Earth Melee developer Ask Me Anything. And I am joined with our music man, Zane Goen.
Hello.
And our other man, Jacob.
Hello.
So these two are going to read off some questions to me that you guys submitted through Twitter, and I will be answering them. So without further ado, let us get right into this. And I have to preface this first question because there were a lot of questions I had to merge into a singular first question that we will get out of the way. And Zane, let's have you read the first question.
Will X character be added to the game?
So, probably, yeah. It'd be really cool. I think it'd be really cool if X character were added to the game. But unfortunately, I will not be answering any questions relating to newcomers. Jacob, let's go to question 2.
How many new characters are there?
Oh, man. Oh, good lord. Lots of character questions. A few. There's a few. Zane, question 3.
Who started the team and how are you all working so well together?
So, who started the team was a fella named Psych. He created the Discord server and he got us all together. And Psych is no longer a part of the team. He left for his own personal reasons going on with his life. And we work well together because I would just say that we're all very chill. We're all very relaxed and we don't have any deadlines going on. And we just kind of make things and then share them with each other and give each other feedback. And we do things kind of at our own pace. And I think that actually, conversely, really helps with productivity, I would say, because there's no need or really like pressure. And that makes us not really procrastinate because the game gets done when we finish it. It doesn't get done at like a set date. And yeah, like I think it's impressive that for 10 months, the developer channels have only had like good vibes, you know? Like it's never fallen apart. There haven't been like any huge arguments. Like we've had disagreements, but it's never really like gotten to the point where we've like disliked each other or we haven't worked well together. So, yeah.
Will you have a stock option for 4-player mode? It was always annoying having to play with the point system in the original games, when you played with 3 or 4 people. It would be fantastic if there was an option for just health and stocks.
Okay, so for those who don't know, stocks are, like to use Smash as an example, stocks are the term for like a life, for lives in a fighting game sense. Sort of. We have a new way to play melee mode that I think will be a lot more popular than timed mode. And it will make the 3 to 4 player matches a lot more interesting, and it will be possible to end them prematurely before the timer runs out. So I think you guys will enjoy that version.
How difficult was it to change the scale in the monsters, like Destroya being bigger than he was in the vanilla game?
Okay, so I didn't do that. That was Dylan, and only he's an Enigma, so only he really knows just how difficult it was, but I have a pretty good idea. That took us, more accurately him, about 5 months to figure out. It could not be done through the original means that we were attempting to do it, which was the actual code of the game itself. And it instead had to be accomplished through something called Lua Engine, which is a plugin for the custom build of PCSX2 for Save the Earth Melee. And once we got that, Dylan figured it out very quickly. It was a much easier alternative than just simple hex editing. So,
what happened to Spigot? Why couldn't you use it? And what would that have helped with if you could? Thank you.
So Spigot, for those who don't know, was the original engine that Save the Earth was built on, and Destroy All Monsters Melee. And The reason we can't use it is because we don't have the source code. That's pretty simple. Everything that we're doing is being done through hex editing. We're editing the ISO itself, and reverse engineering the game would take way too long to where it's not worth it anymore. At that point, it would just be more worth it to make our own game. It would take years. So that's basically why we aren't using Spigot. And it would help in the sense that we'd basically be able to do anything with the game. But we've gotten this version of the game to basically the point where we can do everything that we wanted to with the source code, with some very specific exceptions that we're still working on. So ultimately, there's not much more we could have done that we wanted to, I would say.
Would it be possible at all to incorporate the Star Falcon? Even if it's possible, how would you go about it if you had the option?
So the Star Falcon is the lower half of Mogira, and it is actually, a model for it actually exists in the game's files. Many people don't know that, because Mogira was originally intended to split apart into the land section and the flying section. But they, I guess, scrapped that idea, I guess, pretty late into development, because the model for the Star Falcon still exists, but there's no like code or framework for that kind of thing. I will say that we have incorporated the Star Falcon into Save the Earth Melee in some way, and you'll just have to see how we did that. So,
Hello, I was wondering, are you going to make a battle damage face skin for Kiryu?
yes. Question 9.
Are you going for realism and accuracy over anything else? If so, awesome. If not, why not?
So no, not over anything else, but realism and accuracy. I would say accuracy to the films is very important, but realism is definitely not, especially for a wacky Pipeworks fighting game. I think ultimately, when I'm designing the gameplay, the only thing I care about is how fun it is to play. And I take a lot of liberties with like character movesets to make it fun and accurate second. Because I feel that ultimately what's on screen in a movie sometimes can translate well to a game, but most of the time cannot. And I think the most realistic and accurate Godzilla game out there is Godzilla PS4. And that game has its own merits, but people don't really like that game across the board. And I think the reason why is because it was so strict on its realism and accuracy, and it didn't take that many liberties with just focusing on being a fun game, first and foremost. So that's what we're really focused on here, is making the game as fun as possible to play.
Are you going to add Biollante to the game, since she was practically done for the original STE?
So that's a two-parter answer. The first one is yes, we will be adding Biollante. But the second part, this is actually a misconception that Biollante was practically done for the original game. She is not even close to being done. She's maybe 35% done. And she's extremely broken in the sense that she's overpowered, but also she's missing a lot of attacks. A lot of her attacks don't work. Like knockback affects her in a very strange way. And the game will sometimes crash with her like burrowing mode. And that stuff gets pretty janky if you ever watch videos like with the burrowing mode. She also doesn't have a get up attack or a rage attack. Like, she's very incomplete, and to finish her is going to be a monumental task, but she will be in the game in version 1.
How would you handle adding new kaiju to this mod that don't have beam weapons or lack any real form of long-range attacks?
Okay, so this question was a lot longer originally, but I cut it down to save on some time. But I did read everything that you wrote, and I appreciate it. I think that a character not having a ranged weapon is just as valid and just as interesting as a character who does. And that was actually something that I didn't really like about Unleashed, was that every character had the same beam weapon. They were all practically identical to each other, and they had very minor differences. They could all beam battle. And I think Titanosaurus or Varan in that game having a beam weapon was sort of a missed opportunity for doing something more creative with the character. Like if they had leaned into Titanosaurus having more wind attacks, maybe like his beam could pull you in and you could get combos that way. That would be far more interesting than just a generic beam. And Varan, I think Varan could function perfectly fine in that game without any ranged attack whatsoever. And he just focused primarily on rushing the opponent down. I think that's just as valid. And I don't think that something like a ranged weapon should be forced if the moveset or the character doesn't really call for it.
Will Godzilla 2000 and Godzilla 90s have any changes? Perhaps any that make them feel a bit more distinct and less of a clone?
Yes. So every character will have a ton of changes. Every single character. Those two especially are ones that I really want to focus on decloning in as many ways as possible. And you'll just have to see how we end up doing that.
Will characters with regenerative abilities like Megaguirus and King Ghidorah have those abilities tuned or changed to fit the more competitive nature of STEM?
So I think you're referring to their healing abilities, but I'm not totally sure. But let's just say that you are. And to talk about that, I've already done the balancing for Megaguirus, and she still has her heal. And it fits a lot better into her new moveset and her new balancing than it did before. I'll just say that. And I have not yet done the balancing for King Ghidorah, so I don't know if I'm going to keep his heal or not, or if I'm going to replace it with something else. But I think healing is a pretty valid way to incorporate something into a moveset in a competitive way. It just has to be done right. And I will say that Space Godzilla, his healing was toned way down with each crystal, because you know that he has 6 crystals now. And before, healing from just one crystal would heal 15 health each. So if you had 2 out, that was 30 health. Now they heal a lot less health each. They heal 6. But if you have 6 out, that's 36 health regenerated. So it's more of, that's like the maximum amount. That's like end game. If you have all 6 crystals out somehow, because they're very disposable now, then you can heal a bit more than you could in vanilla. But if you just have 1 out, you're barely healing anything. So I think it's much more balanced in that way, to answer your question.
Wow, I like this one. Obsidius?
Obsidius?
Yeah, Obsidius.
Obsidius.
Obsidius?
That would be really cool.
That would be.
That would be cool. Yeah.
Very cool.
Very cool.
Do all of the characters have updated moves like Kiryu and Destroya? Also, will the characters have different era skins? For example, a Mothra Leo skin for Mothra or a Showa Baragon skin?
So, every character has an updated moveset that is far better and more interesting than the one they had in vanilla. Every character has usually like a minimum of 6 pages of changes in the changelog. I think Kiryu had like 9 and Destroya had like 7 or 8. And like personally, I'm focusing primarily on like incorporating as many movie abilities as I can, as well as things that are just cool, that fit the moveset. But no character will play the same way that they played in vanilla. Some more than others. Like a few characters are just kind of the vanilla character, but way better and way more interesting because I thought that they were practically perfect. But some were definitely not, and they had severe changes. The second part of your question was, will there be different era skins, like different suits? I can't speak to the ones that you specifically mentioned, but there will be a few. There will be a couple. But don't expect it to be the norm with skins because we're focusing primarily on, for version 1, palette swaps because they are the least time consuming with this process as we're overhauling everything. And palette swaps, I think like a creative palette swap, which is it's a lot faster to do, and I think it services those roles of like a skin better than another suit, which could take dozens, if not hundreds of hours to create, which I think would be better suited for a future content update. But that being said, there will be some alternate suits in the game for other characters.
Once the game is finished or in a playable state, how will we be able to play it?
So the game will be a PC exclusive, and it will be played through a custom build of PCSX2 that will be as plug and play as possible. We're still kind of building the custom build, but hopefully it will just be, you put it in a folder and you press play and then you're playing it. Maybe you have to map your controller inputs, whichever controller you want to use. You can use any USB controller or your keyboard if you want. But other than that, it'll be very simple to just play.
How will you be implementing the unlocking system? Will it be a mixture of Damn and Save the Earth where you play through the game to unlock Kaiju stages? Or will it just be earning credits to buy the unlocks through the in-game store?
So having a Destroy All Monsters unlocking system, the arcade-style system, that is one of those things that would require the source code, because that involves writing brand new code. The credit system is something I'm not a fan of, and because this is focusing primarily on being a competitive game, the plan for right now is to just have everything be unlockable or unlocked already, all the monsters, all the stages, but there will be things that will be unlockable, specifically relating to a ton more like gallery items, as well as maybe some skins, maybe some alternate stage appearances. But in terms of all of the content, it will be immediately available.
So, how's the process of stage development coming along? Have you guys figured out how to add new stages?
So, Jacob, this is actually a question I feel is better suited for you, since that's what you're currently working on right now.
Okay.
So, Jacob, how's the process of stage development coming along? Have you guys figured out how to add new stages?
Not necessarily. No, I wouldn't give you a full answer, yes or no. It's something that we're definitely working on, and it's something that I'm definitely extremely interested in, and that I would love to have. But with the way the game works, I think the best way to create a new stage is to do it from a stage that's already existing. But when it comes to the process of stage development, from what we know, I personally haven't experimented with it enough, but from what we know, I would say that it's going along well. There are some things that we might be able to add to stages, and I think that's all I'll say, is there are things that we might be able to add to certain stages, and that you should keep your eye out when playing on those stages.
Very, very nice. Okay, thank you. Next question.
Is Gojirex single?
Is Gojirex single? Unfortunately, he is not.
That was my question. No. That's great.
I guess next question.
Alrighty. STEM is heavily inspired by both DAM and STE. Was there anything in STEM that was learnt from Unleashed?
Okay, so this was I think one of the most interesting questions that we got, because the attitude towards Unleashed is mostly negative, and I think a lot of that is warranted, but I think in general that's pretty unfortunate, because there is a lot of really cool stuff in Unleashed, specifically with how the characters work in terms of like their movesets. Like an example would be like Megaguirus. In Save the Earth, she flies low and she flies high, and she can only do those two things. and she can only really do her attacks when she's flying low. Whereas in Unleashed, at any y-axis, she can attack. And that's really cool. I don't think that's not possible in Save the Earth's engine. That's why they had to rewrite the engine. But that's just an example of things in Unleashed that many people overlook that I've been looking at closely to see what I can take. Like other interesting things in Unleashed are like you can move while you're doing your beam. Again, I'm not saying that's going to be in the game. But there were some things that I did take, like the shorter stun animations for like hurting your hand or hurting your foot. That inspired me to shorten the length of the actual toe stubs and hand stubs, and try to get it to look more like that, since we can't take the actual animations from the game. But just stuff like that. Just know that like I am looking at the things that Unleashed did right, and I'm seeing where I can fit those aspects into the gameplay of Save the Earth Melee.
Will the game's menu have any changes, cosmetic or otherwise? If so, how extensive are the changes?
So the game's menu is something that we've barely implemented the changes for, but we do have very extensive plans for a completely different looking main menu that still kind of keeps the overall feel of the original, where it's in a submarine, there is Godzilla's eye, but it merges those aspects with what I feel is the best menu in the series, which is Strong Monsters Melee. So I think you guys will really appreciate the new main menu we have for Save the Earth Melee.
Will mini-games be added or changed / removed?
So the challenges, the mini games, we're in kind of a difficult spot with those, I would say, because they aren't very good, and many people feel that like in action mode, the challenges aren't very fun. They try their hardest to skip over them. Like many playthroughs you see of action mode with Godzilla 2000, they just destroy the pyramid building because they don't want to deal with the challenge. So it kind of raises the question, are they worth trying to change? Because we're primarily focused on just the multiplayer experience, but more accurately the actual gameplay, the fundamental aspects of gameplay. And there are changes to action mode. There are a lot of changes to action mode. But when it comes to the challenges themselves, I have noticed that they are a lot more fun to play just because of like the universal mechanics of the game and the character specific mechanics. They make them a lot easier and a lot more tolerable. But setting aside time to actually try and fix them, that's kind of a difficult position we're in, because that's a lot of time spent on something I personally don't really care about. But if we don't change anything, people might be upset with us, and we can't just straight up remove them from the game because people would also be really upset with us. So that's kind of a weird situation for us. We might overhaul them at a later date, but it's not what we're currently focused on.
How many custom skins will we be able to have per character? Just 2 or more? How will they be selectable? Thank you for making such an amazing thing for such an amazing game.
You are welcome. I think that's one of my favorite things about Save the Earth Melee is the skin system, which is a much bigger deal than I think many people realize. Just how much it adds to the game, like having those different appearances and being able to play as the same monster without it feeling kind of weird. Like I think it adds it's a huge aspect of the game that's being added. And in terms of how many skins, we want a minimum of 4, and it looks like there's going to be a maximum of 6. So some characters in version 1 are going to have 4, some are going to have 6. And the goal with all the future updates is to bring everyone up to 6, because that seems to be like the max amount that we can realistically have universally across the board. And some characters we are cutting some skins to make room for others because we just can't decide the 6 best ones. And some we have like no idea what we could even do for a second or a third one. So it's going to be really interesting to see how we end up adding 6 in future updates. But for version 1, we should have 4 for every character. And then I think another part of that was how are they selectable? They are selected through the character select screen. You lock in your character first, and then you press a button, and that button is specific to skin 1, skin 2, skin 3, and the menu lets you know which skin is which. So you select it in the actual menu itself. There's no file swapping required. But we might include a few extra textures that we made that didn't make the final cut if you want to swap out those files as well, because the game will be very easy to mod for your own personal use. So,
How about Kiryu and SMG armor, which I assume refers to Super Mechagodzilla? Will it change for the better? I remember how annoying it was fighting a Kiryu when he had that armor. Best wishes with the project mates.
So all armor, with some exceptions, like on some very specific attacks, have armor, but it is always breakable by anything heavier than light flinch, which is like jabs. All armor is removed, and that specific armor was not actually technically armor. That was their special typing. So typings, the character stats, resistances, weaknesses, those are just gone. Those we realized it took us a while to like fully realize that those have no place in this game. Because for a while we toned them down, and then we removed all of them except for just like one typing for each character, and then we kept in some very specifically. But we realized this kind of stuff has no place in a fighting game, especially the special typing that some characters have, which is like King Ghidorah and Orga don't flinch at all to blunt attacks, and the 2 Mechagodzillas don't flinch at all to edged attacks. And it's like there's no real reason to keep that stuff in the game. It just prolongs the match. It's anti-competitive, and ultimately it's not fun. It wasn't fun to fight, and it created a sort of matchup imbalance that didn't feel fair. The characters are balanced in a much more healthy and unique way with their move sets and more natural stats like that rather than just numbers. So that kind of stuff is no longer in the game. Kiryu can flinch with the rest of them.
Aside from the higher resolution textures, what other features of STEM were made possible thanks to the custom PCSX2 build? Only features you're willing to share at this time, if any.
The custom build is what allowed us to use the Lua backend engine. And Lua is basically what enables us to do any of the cool stuff with the game. So resizing monsters, that came from Lua. The new game modes, like no buildings, no barriers, stuff like that, turning off items, all that stuff came from Lua. That's what makes it possible. There are some other things as well that Lua allows us to do that I would love to go into here, but we're saving for future presentations. But just know there is a very specific reason that this game is a PC exclusive, and it is because of the script injector for Lua. Like, it changes the game in so many ways that were only possible with the source code. And at this point, we've basically reverse engineered the entire game using this custom build. So that's really exciting. Next question.
Who is the character you've had the most fun developing?
So this is a hard one because I feel like it's whichever one I'm currently working on, because with each new character, I'm always like, oh, this is my main, easy. This is like the coolest character I've made so far. And it's because with each new character, I discover new things that can be done with the game that I hadn't thought of in through the hex editing. So characters that I started, like the first characters that we truly overhauled were like Kiryu, Jet Jaguar, Space Godzilla. And they're all really cool. They're really cool in this game, but they are not as cool as the most recent ones that I've overhauled, where the coding gets like super complex and the movesets get like super crazy compared to the more simple ones. So I would say so far, if I had to pick, the most fun I had working on a character was probably Gigan. And I think when you guys see how Gigan plays, you're going to understand exactly why. Like, he is super crazy. And I'm really excited. He might, or he might not, be one that we reveal before the game comes out. It just kind of depends on where we are in development. Because, again, like I mentioned in the other presentation, some characters, their gameplay is totally done, but they have no model and no texture. It's vanilla. Other characters, it's the complete opposite, where they play exactly like how they did in vanilla. They aren't very fun, but they look amazing. So it really sucks for us because we want to show stuff off, but it's not completed in every area. So we don't want to give like a false impression of what they'll look like or what they'll play like. And Gigan right now is one of those characters where his gameplay is totally done, but his visual side is not yet completed. But I hope that we can show off a lot more characters before the final presentation. That would be my hope. Well, that is the end of our list. Thank you so much for all these questions, and I had a fun time enjoying them, and I hope that this was a very exciting information dump for all of you. And I'm sorry if I did not answer your question, specifically if it's relating to newcomers. But thank you everyone for listening, and thank you Jacob and Zane for asking these questions, doing this with me.
Of course. It was fun.
Oh, you're welcome.
All right. We'll see you all next time.